Dear students, very good morning. Today we shall try to know something about The Merchant of Venice, the famous comedy play written by William Shakespeare. You have read already something about William Shakespeare in your previous classes. You have read some poems, sonnets, and some comedy play also and some tragedy play in your previous classes. I hope you have read Macbeth as well as you like it in your previous classes. So you have a brief idea about the drama and about the works of William Shakespeare. So I don't think that we should remind much more about the life and works of William Shakespeare, but just for few minutes, let us uh, repeat something about the life of William Shakespeare. Shakespeare is one of the greatest playwright of English literature, and he was born in 1564 in the small town of Stratford upon Avon. He was a son of a tradesman who made and sold gloves. He was educated at grammar school in the town. He never went to college, and he married Anne Hathaway, from whom he had 3 daughters. He had no sons. Although we know very little about William Shakespeare's life, but we have come to know, we have learnt that Shakespeare became both an actor and playwright in 1592 in London when Elizabeth I was the Queen of England at that time. Then the King of England became James I in 1603, and in his times Shakespeare wrote his serious dramas and tragedies as well. Now let us see some of his chief works. His works has been we can divide into 4 phases. According to Oxford University Press, the first phase is 1594, when he wrote comedies like Comedies of Errors, Two Gentlemen of Verona, Love's Labour's Lost. He has written historical plays also in this phase, like Henry VI, Part 1, 2, 3, and Richard III, King John. He also wrote one tragedy in this phase, that was Titus Andronicus, and he wrote some poems like Venus and Adonis and Rape of Lucre. So this was the first phase, this was the beginning of Shakespeare's writing, and we have these works from him. In the second phase, that was important one also, because the most famous comedies written by William Shakespeare, published as well as came into existence in this period: Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, Much Ado About Nothing, As You Like It. These are the famous comedies Shakespeare wrote around 1596 to 1599. In this period, he also wrote some historical plays like Richard II, Henry IV, Part 1, 2, and Henry V as well. He also wrote one tragedy in this period, and that is Romeo Juliet. And sonnets. So far the poems are concerned, he wrote sonnets in this period, and you know very well because you have already read some sonnets written by William Shakespeare. So you know about what is sonnet, what type of sonnets are there, and you like them very much. Then comes the third page of his works, and that is 1608. In this period, we know that Shakespeare wrote comedies like Twelfth Night, All's Well That Ends Well, Measures for Measures. He wrote tragedies, the famous tragedies ever written by William Shakespeare, and are very important tragedies of English literature like Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, Antony, and Cleopatra. These all famous tragedies have been written in this phase. And the fourth phase, that is the 1613, in that period, some comedies like Pericles, A Winter's Tale, and The Tempest have been written. And one historical play was also there, that was Henry VIII. In this period, no tragedies, no poems were written. So, this was the little introduction about the dramatist, about the poet, the famous poet William Shakespeare, and his works as well. Now we come to our point, that is the play, The Merchant of Venice, which is in your syllabus. So, let me just tell you some introduction about the play. Then we will go with the summary, short, a brief summary of the play, so that you may have an idea about the play in your mind, and I hope that can create a kind of motivation and inspiration to go with the text of the play at your home. And I hope also that you will enjoy this play. This is the comedy, the famous comedy written by William Shakespeare. You know that this is the 16th century play, as we have already discussed, and it is believed that it was written between 1596 to 1599, that is the second phase of his works. And it is also assumed or guessed that it might have been published first in 1605. So far, the main characters of this play are concerned. I just tell you the name. Antonio is there, his friend Bassanio is there, Shylock, who is supposed to be the villain of the play, is there, Portia is the heroine of the play who marries Bassanio. Then we have Celerio, Jessica, Gracinio, Prince of Morocco, Prince of Oregon, etc. There are many more other minor characters in this play. Now, let us see that this is the comedy which definitely shares certain aspects of Shakespearean's other romantic comedies. And this play is also remembered for its dramatic scenes. And especially this play, The Merchant of Venice, is best known for Shylock, who is the villain of this play. And in this play, we have his famous speech on humanity, hath not a Jew eyes. That is, Shylock was a Jew, and the other characters we have in this play are Christians. and Christians used to hate with Jews. And therefore, Shylock also doesn't have any soft corner or any kindness for the Christians as well. There is also one more notable character in this play, and that is the heroine of the play, Portia. And we will see her speech about the quality of mercy. She has a very big role, but let us see in the summary of the play, we will try to understand. So, this was the little introduction of the play we must know, and this will also help, I think, in preparing your question answer for the examination that you must write. Now, come to the summary, or we can say the brief story of the play. As we have come to know about the chief characters of the play. So now let me tell you that the play begins with Antonio and Bassanio, who are talking each other. Antonio is a Venetian. Venetian means the citizen of Venice. So he is a Venetian merchant as well. And he is complaining to his friend Bassanio of a melancholy mood that he cannot express. So, in the beginning, we come to know that Antonio is very sad. Antonio is anxious. Antonio is in the mood of melancholy. But why he is sad? He himself doesn't know. He can't express. He doesn't know what are the reasons of his sadness. Then we come to know that Bassanio, both of them are very close friends and they are always ready to help each other. So Bassanio tries to know the reason and asks Antonio, but Antonio says nothing about that he himself doesn't know what are the reasons of his grief or the sadness. Now we come to know that Bassanio is desperately in need of money to court Portia, to marry. He wanted to marry Portia. And now who is Portia? Portia is the princess of Belmont. She is the heiress. That is, she lives in Belmont and she has got a large amount of property in here, in successor. So, Bassanio wanted to marry Portia, and therefore Bassanio was in the need of some money so that he could reach to the Belmont city and then offer her proposal to Portia. So Bassanio asks for some money to Antonio, because what used to do Antonio in the Venice, what was the business of Antonio? The business of Antonio was also to loan money to the needy people on without interest. He never asked for interest. Whereas Shylock was also there, a merchant, but he always wanted the double interest, a very heavy interest upon the loan, upon the money that he used to give the others. So, Antonio agrees, but he himself cannot lend. Why he cannot lend? Because he has invested his large money in trade of ships. And his ships are still at the sea. They have not reached yet. So Antonio suggests Bassanio that he won't be able to give him the money from him, but there is another man who lends money and who has the business of money lending. And who is that? Shylock. And Shylock is also one of the city's money lender, and he himself will be the guarantor of Bassanio. That is, they plan to go to Shylock and ask for the money, ask for the loan. And Antonio is here ready to become the guarantor of Bassanio. In this way, we see that they go to Shylock. On the other hand, what's happening in the Belmont city where Portia lives? In Belmont, Portia expresses her sadness. She also expresses her sadness over her father's will, which describes that Portia must marry a man who correctly chooses the right casket. Her father died, but he had a will, and according to that will, Portia, his daughter, could only marry that man, that person who could choose the right casket decided by the father. That is, her father had three caskets, and one of them there was the portrait or there was the photo of Portia. So, any shooter who comes or who wants to marry Portia first have to choose the right casket. We will also discuss about the caskets furthermore, and here we come to know that Portia is talking about all that with Nerissa. Nerissa is her maid, and they have also the news about Bassanio, who is coming to them having the proposal of marriage. And they already knew about him something because somewhere they have met earlier also. On the other side, as we saw in Venice, Antonio and Bassanio approached to Shylock for a loan. As I told you, Shylock was a Jew, whereas Antonio and other persons in Venice were the Christian characters, and they hate each other. And for that point of view, Shylock had a long standing grudge against Antonio. There was one most important reason behind Shylock's hate against Antonio, and that was that Antonio used to loan on free of interest, whereas Shylock would take high rates of interest on loaning. So that was the reason that Shylock hated Antonio. Therefore, once Shylock says that he would not give any loan to them. But however, Antonio and Bassanio manage. And Shylock agrees to loan without interest. Without interest. But the condition was, he laid one condition. Shylock laid one condition upon Antonio. Antonio was the guarantor of Bassanio. What was the condition? That if Antonio fails to repay the loan, Shylock would be entitled to get a pound of Antonio's flesh. Although this was the serious thing, but Shylock told it's okay, it's just in a joke. But okay, they will decide. So, despite Bassanio refuses, Bassanio warns Antonio that you should not accept this condition. But, however, Antonio signs the bond, which was endorsed by the notary public also in the court. And this was the chance that Shylock wanted to get. Shylock wanted to revenge from Antonio. Then the news comes that Shylock's servant, what was the name of Shylock's servant? Launcelot. Launcelot leaves Shylock's house and he joins Bassanio's service. And therefore, he is with Bassanio when they go to Belmont city to Portia. Then we also come to know that Shylock's daughter Jessica has also eloped with Lorenzo. And who is Lorenzo? Lorenzo is the friend of Antonio. So, Shylock's daughter, whose name was Jessica, has run away with one of the friends of Antonio, whose name was Lorenzo. So, Shylock's servant also leaves him as well as his daughter. Then Bassanio and his friend Gracino, they leave for Belmont, where Bassanio intends to win the Portia's hand. Portia welcomes the Prince of Morocco, means before Antonio and Gracino approaches Portia, there were the other suitors who had come there to woo Portia. And they made an attempt to choose the casket, but they all failed. So one of them was the Prince of Morocco. He also could not choose the right casket. And what he chose? He chose the gold casket. And that was the incorrect choice. In Venice, Shylock is very angry, very furious to find that his daughter has run away, and he was also worried that his servant has also left him. But one thing that was making him happy was that Antonio's ships have been wrecked. There was the information comes, and knowing that information, Shylock becomes very happy. That after all, Antonio is the loser now. In Belmont, the another prince, that is the Prince of Aragon, also visits Portia, and he too studies very carefully all the caskets, but he picks up the silver one, and which was also the incorrect choice. And meantime, Bassanio reached there. Both expresses their love for each other. Bassanio also tries, and as it is to happen that he chooses the right casket immediately, and which was made of lead, in which the portrait of Portia was. So, in this way, Bassanio wins the heart of Portia, and both of them get married, and then they rejoice. Gracino also confesses his love for Nerissa, and he also, Nerissa, who was Nerissa? Nerissa was the maid servant of Portia, and Gracino was the friend of Antonio. So both of them rejoice the occasion, and then they celebrates the ceremony. And during the ceremony, Portia gives a ring to Bassanio. That was a token of love. She said that this was a token of love. So she also makes him swear that under no circumstances Bassanio will part with it. That is, he won't give this token of love to anyone else. It is only his property. So Lorenzo and Jessica also suddenly appears there unexpectedly because they had run away from the house. Then they also come to know that Bassanio and Antonio here come to know that Antonio's has really lost his ships and he has forfeited his bond to Shylock. That is, Antonio is not able to repay the loan, the money to Shylock in time. He failed because his ships have been drawn. Therefore, hearing this news, Bassanio and Gracino immediately travel to Venice to try and save Antonio's life. And after they leave, behind them, Portia also plans and she says, Nerissa, that they will also go to Venice, not in their actual appearance, but they will disguise as men. What happens in Venice? Shylock ignores the many pleas to spare Antonio's life. He is very much adamant for what? That Antonio has failed according to the bond. He has not been able to repay the money in time. Therefore, he has a legal right to get a pound of flesh of Antonio. So, a trial was called to decide the matter. The Duke presided the chair and the trial, and he announces that very soon a legal expert has been called, and who will be turns out. We will see that Portia there appears as a legal expert, and she is disguised in a lawyer, as a young lawyer. Then there is a trial. Portia requests Shylock to show mercy, but Shylock is, as we know, very adamant to have the pound of Antonio's flesh. Bassanio offers twice the money, but Shylock insists on collecting the bond as it is written. Then Portia examines the bond. She finds it legally correct and she says it's okay. The bond is definitely correct and Shylock has legally right. Shylock is entitled to have the merchant's flesh, that is Antonio's flesh, according to the bond. Shylock also praises her wisdom. First, Shylock became very happy. Yes, the young lawyer is speaking true. But as he is on verge of collecting his due, that as Shylock was ready to collecting his due, that is one was going to have the pound of Antonio's flesh, Portia reminds him. What does Portia say? Portia says that he must do so without causing Antonio to bleed. That is, according to the bond, Shylock has the right to get the merchant's flesh, but it is not written in the bond that there should be bleeding from Antonio. So Shylock has the right to get the flesh of Antonio provided that there should be no bleeding of Antonio. That is, it should not cause Antonio to bleed because the contract doesn't have so. Hearing this logic, Shylock was trapped. Shylock was trapped by this logic, and very quickly he became ready to get the money back. Whatever the money Bassanio was paying, he was ready to get that because now he was trapped by the logic of the young lawyer Portia. But now Portia insists, no, no, now you can't get the money. You have to follow, you have to take his bond as written or nothing at all. Either you take whatever written in the bond or otherwise you won't take anything at all. So, in this way, Portia declares Shylock is guilty of conspiring against the life of a Venetian citizen. She declares that Shylock is the guilty because he has conspired. He has made a plot against the life of a Venetian citizen, that is Antonio. So what should be there? So Shylock should surrender his half property to Antonio. She suggests to the Duke is presiding the trial. She requests that because Shylock is the guilty, so he must surrender his half property to Antonio and the other half to the state. The Duke also spares. Duke says it's okay. It's okay, he would spare Shylock's life and takes a fine instead of his property. That is, he would uh, lay some fine upon Shylock instead of his property. Antonio also forgives Shylock on the ground that what was the ground of Antonio? Antonio would forgive Shylock on certain grounds. And what were they? They were that he said that Shylock should convert himself into Christian and name his property to his daughter Jessica after his death. So this was the condition laid by Antonio. And what was the condition by the Duke? That is, the Duke forgave him. Duke showed his mercy, and instead of taking the life of Shylock, he takes a fine. And that was the another was the Antonio's condition. And in this way we see, because Shylock was trapped, so he agrees and then he leaves the place, leaves the court. Then what happens? That Portia is there in disguise, and her maid is also there in disguise, and both of them are in the form of man, disguised as man. So Bassanio and Gracino don't recognize them, they don't identify, and therefore both of them thank her that she has saved his life. Then comes the point of the fee of the lawyer. Antonio wants to give some money, but Portia refuses. Portia tells that if he wants to give something, then he should give the ring that is in his finger to Portia. And for that, he has promised not to part. But when Portia insisted that no, she would take nothing at all except this one. Then Bassanio agrees and he gives his ring to the lawyer, that is Portia. Gracino also gives his ring to Nerissa, who is disguised as a clerk to Portia. Both the women return to Belmont, and there they find that Lorenzo and Jessica is the daughter of Shylock, they have declared their love to each other under the moonlight, and they wanted to marry. Then Bassanio and Gracino also arrive there. Both the wives, I mean Portia and his maid Nerissa, they demand the ring back. Where are their rings? They say, why did they give it to the other women as they promised? So, in this way, Portia and Nerissa accuse Bassanio and Gracino for their false love. They must have not given their rings to the another person as they had promised, and they also made them swear so. So, in this way, some critical position takes place, but we find as the comedies of Shakespeare, because comedy, that is, the end has the happy end. So now, before it is too late, Portia reveals that she was the law clerk or the lawyer. She was the lawyer, and Nerissa was the lawyer clerk. So both of them were there in disguise. So now they need not to worry about that. They were just trying to touch the heart of Bassanio and Gracino. In this way, both Portia and Nerissa reconcile with their husbands. Lorenzo and Jessica is already there. They were also pleased to learn about their inheritance from Shylock, because Shylock had to name half of his property to his daughter, that is Jessica. So they were also rejoicing this pleasure, this happiness. And in the end, the joyful news arrives. And what was that joyful news? That Antonio's ships have made it come back safely. That is, they have returned. So, the misfortune that was going to happen upon Antonio earlier also came to an end. And in this way, we find in this comedy that all these groups celebrates their good fortune, celebrates the happiness, and this is the story of the Merchant of Venice. So here we have the three couple, the one Portia and Bassanio, the second Nerissa and Gracino, and the third one Lorenzo and Jessica. These three couples, though they had to face many difficulties, many hurdles, but in the end they get married and enjoy. And in the end, as I have said, that in the end the news also comes about the happiness of Antonio, that is about the ships. So in this way, the comedy ends in happiness. So please enjoy this comedy, going with the text line by line at your home, and next, in our next lecture, I will explain some of the important extracts or the passages which are also important from the examination point of view, and we will discuss those important lines in our next lecture. Thank you very much. See you.